Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, this is Orphanlast, aka Skylar Madison, and today I'm coming at you with another 51 animation challenges video, and this is how far I've gotten with the flour sack animation, and I think it's coming out pretty well. So far, I have a little bit of an animatic going on. I should have grabbed flour sack number 1 and just kept one image where he's the tallest that he's ever been, and put it right next to flour sack number 2, because if you look at it, flour sack number 2 is significantly smaller than flour sack number 1. So this means that I'm going to have to use the animate tool in order to change their sizes to match, and so that's just a little bit more work because of an oversight on my part, but it's not too big of a deal. Now, the run cycle for flour sack number 2, I'm really happy with. The walk cycle, however, he kind of doesn't look right. It just doesn't seem like he has enough of a pause after each step, if that makes sense. It's just a little bit too ambitious, but then again, I kind of like the ambitiousness of his character, but even still, I'm thinking about adding a frame for each step to make it a little bit better, and I'm really enjoying this process. Now, I have actually deviated quite a bit from the timing that I laid out initially with the thumbnails, and I was initially planning on staying really loyal to them, but what I'm finding is the animatic, it doesn't take too awfully much work, and you're able to nail down your timing really well. You're able to visualize how everything is starting to come together. It's kind of like a rough sketch of everything, and if I was working inside of a studio and I had audio to work with and I had a director giving me a time budget, I would be able to work pretty strictly to that. Now, one thing that animators keep telling me is that oftentimes characters move according to a specific tempo, and that sounds really interesting to me. I wish I understood that better. I guess OpenTune separates each second by thirds, so it's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I try to work with that as best as I can, but just looking there on the graph, whether it's the X sheet or the timeline, it's really difficult for me to actually visualize that as being time. I suppose that being able to visualize the X sheet or the timeline as being time can really help an orchestrator be able to orchestrate the music to your cartoon, but I just find it very difficult at this point in time. Maybe at some point in time I'll be able to really understand what they're talking about, but right now it just seems like a purely organic experience, and I don't know if there's anything wrong with that necessarily, but that's just how I feel at this point. A while back, I asked Franco Bianco if playing music on your X sheet or timeline, if that could actually help you out, but he said
not really.
So I'm not really quite sure what I could really use as a tool to help me nail down some sort of timing. Maybe I should get a metronome and just have that as an audio file inside of the timeline. That way I have some sort of reference as audio as I play the metronome. I don't know, maybe that might help. I will say this about the entire time where I've been recording the footage for this video. Now, this took the course of a number of days. Sometimes I have things going on and I can't just sit down and work on everything for the entire day. So, I wind up selecting all of my frames, renumbering them, and closing the program, and even still, the issue, the bug that Darren T has brought up in the previous OpenTunes news video, my most recent OpenTunes news video, it wound up popping up constantly. Every time I opened up OpenTunes, opened up this project, I would wind up seeing about 3 different frames that didn't get saved properly. And the only thing that I can think of that's causing this is using the X sheet as the animation sheet. And I really like using the X sheet as the animation sheet. This bug needs to be fixed, so developers that are watching my videos, please go fix that problem. Please. It's so annoying having to redraw and redraw frames. in total, I think that I redrew about maybe 15 different frames. Now, you guys don't get the chance to see me redrawing a whole lot of frames, because most of the time I'd redraw them while I wasn't recording. It was still an extreme frustration. What if this was cleanup work? What if I had to redo, like, some really nice refinement? How frustrating. Now, don't get me wrong, I love OpenTunes. I think this program is awesome. I've centered my entire channel on OpenTunes for the time being and everything like that. And, you know, even if or when I wind up centering my channel on something else, OpenTunes is going to be a consistent theme with my channel. I'm not going to just abandon this software. The very concept of being able to improve upon tools for people that have a budget that can't afford these extremely expensive programs, that's something that is important to me. Providing tools for people that are young, that is very important. Because for me, as a kid, there was nothing to learn animation. There was nothing out there to learn. And if I could provide some means for some little kid just like me to be able to actually accomplish something that they've always dreamed to do, similar to what I wanted to do as a kid, that would mean the world to me. And so OpenTunes is always going to be something that I love, and this isn't something that would ever cause me to stop using OpenTunes. It's just an extreme frustration for the time being, and I am confident that these sorts of bugs will get resolved in time. Okay, I'm done with the high horse and the weirdness. So, more on the actual animation process and thoughts that were occurring to me as I was doing this exercise, this challenge and everything. Now, go figure, flower sacks don't actually walk. And yet, I found myself asking myself the question, how do flower sacks walk? I kept thinking that somebody would probably look at this animation and say something like, well, that's not how flower sack walks. Ugh, idiot. So I honestly don't know if I should have been imitating some other animators' work in some way, or if I should actually just approach it from my own perspective. In the end, I just went with my own perspective, just thinking, well, let's just see if I could figure it out on my own a little bit. And I guess if I was studying a human doing a walk cycle, I should probably be looking at a reference in that specific context. But when it's a flower sack, it's a construct of your imagination when it does a walk cycle, or when it does a jump, or kicks a ball, or something along those lines. But I gotta tell you, I'm having a lot of fun working on this thing. Now, I would be further along with the Animatic if I hadn't focused on the walk cycles and the run cycles and such like that. But those are things that I really wanted to focus on. And making an Animatic where I just place a couple of, contact frames, passing positions, and such like that didn't seem like it was enough to me. So I thought, okay, let's get these walk cycles done first thing. That way I could really nail down the timing. And that is the reason why I did it this way, where I tackled walk and run cycles first. Now, there are, in total, 4 different poses with a walk animation. You can get away with just 2, but there are 4 if you want a really good one. There's the contact position, the passing position, the down, and the up position. Those are the 4 positions officially. And I did try to utilize a down and an up position a little bit. But, it's a flower sack. How is it supposed to walk? Basically, I got the contact and passing positions, and I put them all in the same space, so that I could go ahead and draw them the same volume. The 2 contact positions that you need, those will be the same size. The passing position will be a different volume, and such like that. And then I wound up selecting the frames and kind of spacing them out. And that way I actually got the character moving forward. And then once I had a full cycle, I just used the animate tool to reuse that animation. Now, some animators, they just use the level strip, and they just do the entire walk cycle as if the character is standing still, but the walk cycle is still going on. And then they use the animate tool and the hook tool in order to get the thing to move. And the hook tool makes it so that it doesn't look like the character is kind of gliding or sliding around on the ground. And I didn't really want to do that. I felt like if I could do a walk cycle without any hooks, then that would be ideal. But next time that I do a walk cycle, I think I'm going to do it the other way, just so that I could broaden my horizons a little bit. It's not an either-or sort of situation, in my opinion. If there's more than one approach at the same thing, why not have all of the approaches available to you as an option? While I'm looking at the footage here at 10 times speed and everything like that, I think it's a lot more clear how often I wind up using point-to-point animation. I know this isn't the first time that I've mentioned it, but I've actually really seen the quality of my work really improve when I turn on my onion skins and I just draw a bunch of points rather than lines in order to find out how the next in-between should be. My work has become a lot more competent, just a lot better and such like that. Now, a lot of animators actually tell you to turn off your onion skins, and I think that's primarily when they're making the breakdown images. At least with AMB Animations on YouTube, you can find his videos. Actually, they're little snippets of his animation course. It's a very good animation course, actually. I haven't used it, but his videos are very good. He's a professional animator. And the thing is that I can understand with pose-to-pose animation where you're just drawing a pose and then a different pose a couple seconds afterwards and then another pose and then another one, all spaced out within the course of maybe 1 second here and there. I can understand why you'd turn off your onion skins and flip regularly to keep your volumes consistent throughout the entire time. However, I just have to say that even while AMB Animations does that, even he admits when he's gotten it wrong, where the volumes are just incorrect. And to me, it just seems like if you can get the volumes incorrect, regardless of if you have your onion skins turned on or off, then it doesn't really matter. I guess turning off your onion skins can help you add things like a rotating wrist or something like that, where you're moving shapes around, and you don't want to forget that, but sometimes turning off the onion skins doesn't really help. I don't really understand why there's such an emphasis on turning off your onion skins, unless we're talking about where the character is centered on the screen the entire time. The camera is tracking the character the entire time and such like that, and you don't want the onion skin to be a reference that's obstructing your view from being able to draw the next image. I can understand how that could be a problem and why you would want to keep flipping consistently to use the other image as a reference. But if your character isn't centered on the screen the entire time, and the camera isn't tracking the character the entire time, why not have your reference on the screen 100% of the time while you're drawing the next image? To me, that makes sense. But who knows, I'm kind of a novice. I'm just mentioning the thoughts that are coming to my mind as I'm working on the 51 animation challenges and such like that, and kind of documenting them and such. If I were to do this weekly's footage all over again, I think that I would have followed the thumbnail a lot closer in the sense of the sizes, the volumes of what I drew in the thumbnail. Just simply because while I was drawing out the thumbnail, I was considering everything in the context of everything. Because while drawing a thumbnail, you're thinking in terms of illustrator mode. You're thinking like an illustrator. And so one object in the context of another object is this size. And so while I was animating, like I said earlier at the beginning of the video, flower sack number 2 winds up being significantly smaller, about half the size of flower sack number 1. I got the volumes correct with the thumbnail. And somewhere along the line, I just thought to myself that I must have gotten it wrong with the thumbnail. For some reason, I thought that it looked better when the animation was smaller. So I guess I'm going to carry over that little bit of information, that little educational bit of information, for the next time that I work on an animation project. Stay loyal to your thumbnail, especially when it comes to volumes, not necessarily in terms of timing. I think I can really nail down the timing with an animatic. I really do. Because it's really just the sketch of the animation. The sketch of the motion. And, of course, performing in front of a camera really does help, and looking over the footage and seeing what the timestamp is for each and every single action. That's, of course, very, very useful. But at the same time, I oftentimes think to myself, well, you know, running animations and such like that, and walking animations, I have a little bit of a limp. I mean, I've got an injury that's never going to heal properly. And no, it doesn't really hurt to run, but the thing is that my movements will never look like a person that's in full top peak of their condition. So performing in front of a camera to me just seems like it's a futile effort. If you're a professional animator watching my videos and especially listening to this, does that matter? I'm throwing that question out. And if you're a professional animator and you're listening to this, leave a comment in the video description below, because it really does affect my movement. This injury, like, I've been seriously injured. It affects my movement. So I guess if I wanted to animate somebody who's injured, I could do that, no problem. I can get a video reference, no problem. I just need to get in front of the camera.
I mean, I walk like a freaking penguin.
So, but then again, now that I think of it, a flour sack kind of might walk like a penguin. So, what am I talking about? Now, with my particular workflow, which happens to be pretty reminiscent of traditional animation, I don't really use the animate tool very often. I mean, I understand the gist of how it works and everything like that, but there can be some pretty unpredictable behavior to it. So whenever you add a keyframe, I would suggest just watch the entire animation all over again, because your character might start sliding across the screen and such. And something that I also noticed about the animate tool, which seemed kind of weird. Now, there is a possibility that I personally may have done something wrong, but it seems like OpenTunes might actually delete keyframes sometimes when you close OpenTunes and then open it up again. Because I've seen on multiple occasions where I could absolutely swear I got the animation down, I got it perfect, I got the animate tool and all the keyframes for everything just laid out perfectly. I save, I quit, and then I open up the program the next day, and then I have characters sliding around, and I don't really understand that. I make sure that I press Control S before closing the program. I wait 20 seconds before closing the program, and things like this still happen. So I don't know what's going on there. Again, maybe it's user error. That is a possibility and such. And so right now what you're seeing me doing is I'm creating the walk cycle at this point. There was the thought to actually just grab the previous running animation and use that, but that's not what I wanted initially when I drew out the thumbnail. I thought that I'd just deviate away from it, but it was just a stupid idea, because in order for him to stop, he had to come to a screeching halt. And so to reuse the run cycle, the screech to a halt and everything all over again, just didn't seem to work out very well. And I didn't get that far into it. I didn't let myself get so sidetracked to where it would get that far. But even when reusing the animation again, there was never any point in time where it just seemed like he went from being stationary, from kicking the ball, to running and having it look right. There was never any point like that. So I thought it best to continue with being loyal to the thumbnail in terms of actions to conduct, because it just seemed like a more natural thing to do for him to walk over there and then kind of do this anticipation for a jump and then jump and such like that. Now, I haven't gotten that far. I haven't gotten to the point to where he does this little anticipation for the jump or anything like that, but yeah. Sometimes you're going to be seeing me backtrack with the animation, moving keyframes around, deleting keyframes, redoing things. And again, it's also because the animate tool or user error or whatever. Again, OpenToonz is still riddled with a few glitches here and there, so I'm not really quite sure if I'm to blame, is the thing. Okay, so we're a few more minutes towards the end of the video, but I want to give you guys a little bit of a rundown of what's going on and what you can expect for this week and next week and such like that. So I will do everything within my power to provide you guys another OpenToonz news video on Sunday, and it's going to be very difficult for me to supply it for you guys, but I'm going to work some really hard hours this weekend to see if I can get one out, and I got some decent stories. There was that one story that I still haven't reported on, and it's not going to be in this next OpenToonz news video either, but it's a good one. I'm going to wind up having a separate video for that, and it's basically that video that I'm looking forward to showing you guys, but it's just a matter of coming up with the time to make it. It's basically showcasing a feature. I'll be showcasing a very, very experimental build of OpenToonz that has this specific feature that's almost finished being developed, but it does have a bunch of glitches that make it so that you can't save your work and a bunch of other little things like that. But I'm really looking forward to the feature being released because it seems like my workflow would really jive with it quite well. But for that video, I'm not really quite sure when it's going to get released. However, next week, what you guys can expect is a continuation of the presentation video series. So the further along I get with the presentation video series, I will be able to actually supply you guys with the presentation for collapsible windows. Once I have that, I can have something to show Constantine, and then we can progress into getting this thing crowdfunded. Now, I am not planning on using Bounty Source in order to get this thing crowdfunded. There's nothing wrong with Bounty Source. I like Bounty Source and everything like that. I'm happy with them, I'm thrilled, and all that good stuff. I'm going to be using a different crowdsourcing platform for it, just simply because I don't want to be the only person funding it for several months until I get a few donations and such like that. The only issue with going with a different crowdsourcing platform is that if it doesn't get funded, I'll have to try to get it refunded and have a separate campaign to get it funded. But the positive end is that I am growing contacts along the way in doing something like that if it fails, which gives it a higher likelihood of getting funded. Anyways, guys, that pretty much concludes it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you didn't like it, please like, share, and subscribe anyways. And if you'd like to take a look at any of my other videos, feel free to click on any of them that are appearing on the screen right now. Thank you very much for your time.